Well, hello, Sherwood Park. This is amazing. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you all for taking an interest in the future of our province. I'm honored and I'm blessed to be here with all of you today, and I'm honored and I'm blessed to be sharing a stage and a podium for these next few weeks with these four extraordinary people, and I'm so happy I got to go last. Because all of them have brought up brilliant ideas and brilliant thoughts, all based on an enormous love for this place. So I should have started, and let me start properly in a good way, by saying to all of you from the territory that I come from, Tansi, Buju, Ambawastich, Dada Nastada, Size Etia, Okinitsgwa Nitsuwano Gabesto Chispistus. So those were mispronunciations of the indigenous languages of the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. They all mean the same thing. Greetings to all my relations. And in Plains Native culture, the other thing you must do is introduce yourself when you're starting a conversation. So to my Tsuut'ina brothers and sisters, I am known as Etia, always ready, which, as the organizers of this and any event that I've ever been to, does not mean always on time. The other interesting thing about Plains Native culture, First Nations culture across the Great Plains of North America, is that it's characterized by a great sense of humor. And that great sense of humor is often exhibited by making fun of people who think they're high and mighty. So in typical Siksika Sitipi fashion, Elder Pete, standing alone, gave me a Blackfoot name that I cannot pronounce. And every time I try, they laugh. But it's something like Abesto Chispistus. It means clan leader, he who moves camp and the others follow. Now, the reason I wanted to start in a good way is because I want to start with all of you with a little story, if I may. And the story is, just as I finished being mayor of Calgary, just before the new mayor was sworn in, I had a mysterious appointment in my calendar. And it didn't say what it was, it just told me where to be and what to wear. And in the what to wear, it said, wear your purple ribbon shirt and wear your thinnest pair of moccasins and wear the jacket that Mrs. Starlight made for you when you got your Tsuut'ina name. To this day, I don't know why I had to wear the thin moccasins. But when I got to the room, I was greeted by elders from all 7 of the Treaty 7 First Nations, and they were there to bestow a particular honor on me. And the honor that they were I had already had the names, but the honor that they were bestowing on me is that they were giving me a ceremonial eagle feather headdress. So this was a beautiful day for many reasons, for 3 reasons in particular. Number 1 was the Siksika elder who was performing the ceremony also could not pronounce my Blackfoot name. I felt very vindicated. Number 2, I have a headdress now, which means I can go to any music festival in the world. Coachella, here I come. Thank you for wondering if you should laugh at that joke. It did kill with the elders. But the number 3 and the most important reason is at the end, I walked up to one of the elders, someone I know very well, kind of my advisor. His name is Reg Crowshoe. I call him and his wife Uncle Reg and Auntie Rose. And I said, Uncle Reg, thank you for this honor. This means a lot to me, and I will find a place of honor in my home to display this headdress. And he gave me a super dirty look. And he said, Nahid, that's fine. You should find a nice place to display it. Spoiler alert, still haven't. But he said, more important, you actually have to wear it. And I looked at him and I went, where? Because I can't wear this at the superstore. And he said, well, you have to wear it ceremonially at graduations and things like that. But more important is you have to wear it spiritually. And I kind of looked at him and I was very confused. And he said, well, you keep calling it a headdress, but we don't call it that. Do you know what we call it in our culture? Does anyone know? It's called a war bonnet. And I said, yeah, I knew that, but I don't know what it means. And he said, well, we bestow it upon our warriors. And I looked at him and went, I think you made an error. And he said, I think you're under the wrong impression. I think you think this is a thank you gift for what you've done. It's not what it is at all. What we're telling you is that you have been and you must continue to be a warrior. You must continue to be a warrior for justice. You must continue to be a warrior for equity. You must continue to be a warrior for our people and for all people. So I've taken that with me these last 3 years or so since that day, and that's what I'd like to tell you today. How many of you are exhausted over the last 4 years, over everything that's happened to us? It's so easy to now say, man, we've given up the fight, we've done everything we could do, what else is required of us? What I'm here to tell you today is you too, as all of us, are called upon to be warriors, are called upon to be warriors for a better Alberta. And I got to tell you something, the fight is worth it. It's worth every ounce of sweat and blood and tears in order to build a better future for our neighbors. So, I'm finding myself a little surprised to be on this stage. I thought I was done with all of this. And also, and I see my friend in the front row wearing a purple and orange ensemble, which is awesome because it goes. Because that was my problem. That was my problem. And it's been a problem for a lot of people, right? They say, you've always been known as a guy who wears purple every single day. Indeed. And you know, purple, what does that mean? Does it mean you're trying to pull people to the political center because it's a mix of liberal red and conservative blue? Not really. What it's always meant is that we ought not to define ourselves by our tribes or our affiliations, but we ought to define ourselves by our common humanity. And so the purple, and by the way, it's really hard to find purple and orange things. But the little bit of purple in the orange is an invitation. It's an invitation to all our friends and neighbors in Alberta to say, come and examine the values and the ethics of today's NDP. Understand that they are also your values and your ethics. Understand that this is the vehicle that we need, the movement that we need in order to improve our community. So like many of you, like all of you, I'm guessing, I've been deeply troubled over the direction of our province that we love so much over the last few years. You know, I grew up in Alberta. I grew up in a family in working-class Northeast Calgary. We had small businesses. We worked minimum wage jobs. Sometimes we were poor. Sometimes we were very poor. But I grew up in a community where I graduated from excellent public schools, where I explored the city I love on public transit, where I haunted the public library, where I learned to swim, very badly, in a public pool, where the public healthcare system was always there for us. In short, I grew up in a community that had a stake in me, that wanted me to succeed. And that is what we owe every single other person growing up on this land. And what we have right now is a government unlike any government I've ever seen before. A government that is incompetent, yes, that is immoral, that is dangerous, and that is profoundly uninterested in governing. They are so after the pursuit of power that they didn't know what to do when they got it. I say they're like the dog that caught the car, which would be funny if it weren't so very dangerous. If we weren't living in a moment in human history where we are called upon to be the best we could possibly be, where we are called upon to be the exemplar for the world on what sustainable energy and fighting climate crisis looks like, where we are called upon to ensure that the public services that we have are the best possible publicly delivered public services to make sure that every kid growing up in every neighborhood, in every municipality in this province has the same opportunities that I had, that we had, that all of us deserve. Instead, we have a government that fritters away wealth, that fritters away opportunity, that does focus groups and polling on which vulnerable group is the least popular, and chooses vulnerable children who have an extremely high risk of self-harm and suicide as the group that they're going to demonize. We live in a place where if, God forbid, someone was to collapse right now, we'd have to stop and think, should we call 911 or should we rush them to the hospital ourselves? Because we don't know if there's an ambulance. How can we live with a government like that in a place like this? I grew up under that big blue prairie sky. And I know that as Albertans, our dreams are limited only by that big blue prairie sky. So together, we've got a chance, yes, to defeat this government in 2027, which has to be our singular focus, but we have to remember why we're doing it. So, my slogan in this campaign is "For Alberta, for all of us." And when I wrote that, I thought that the emphasis would be on the word Alberta and on the word all, because we have a government that's not acting for Alberta and for all of us. But it's turned out the power of that slogan is that little tiny word for, F-O-R. And so many of our neighbors across Alberta have said, for so long, our politicians have convinced us to be against Ottawa, to be against environmentalists, to be against oil and gas, to be against people with disabilities, to be against our LGBTQ neighbors. And now, finally, with this race and these wonderful people, we have the opportunity to say what we're for. And you know what? Let's do that together for Alberta, for all of us.
Thank you, Naheed.
Cool.